the disease of addiction is powerful, and it fools you. I mean, you don't know you have it. It's not like you can go to a doctor and get the diagnosis that you've got cancer because they did a scan and you can look at scan and see it. It's up to you to do your own diagnosis. You can see people have bad decisions, bad habits, all that stuff. And people saw that in me, and they assumed I had addiction problems, but it was up to me to make that decision to admit it. And that denial is hard to break. It's hard to break through.
Hey, how are you doing? This is Ronnie Rivera from Rebounds podcast, where the power of the comeback is the most important thing, and the story is why we're here. David, welcome to Rebounds podcast. I appreciate you coming out today. For some of you that are not aware, this is our friend David Bear. He is the CEO and owner of the Lewis Bear Distributing Company. Is that a correct title?
The Lewis Bear Company.
It's the Lewis Bear Company, not distributing.
Correct.
You would think y'all would be called that, but because you're a distributor, but apparently not. And who am I to question that, right?
You'd have to ask my great-great-grandfather who named it.
Fair enough, and we may get to that at some point. I've had an opportunity to look over your resume. It is quite extensive. You are the chairman of Triumph Gulf Coast, the Escambia County Tourism Development Council, Florida West Economic Development Alliance, and other associated boards that you've spent some time on here in the state of Florida, across the state of Florida, not just here in Pensacola, Florida. You have done quite a bit, and obviously your family has done quite a bit. You have a BS in Business Administration. I know a little bit about that. We've talked previously about that. And you're a graduate of what college is that again?
Belhaven College.
Belhaven College.
Jackson, Mississippi.
Jackson, Mississippi. Well, what is the deal that you're actually the third person in a row that has been to college in Mississippi or somewhere?
Really?
Yeah. So welcome aboard and welcome
Thank
to
you.
Rebounds. Thanks for coming out
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We look forward to having this discussion with you. I've taken a look at this resume. It's quite amazing the things that you've accomplished, and certainly your family. And I think we're going to get to that in time. The difference between you and your family, I would hope at some point there is a difference between you and your legacy. Maybe we'll say it that way. But how would you describe your life, where you are right now in your life?
Pretty hectic, I think. I mean, it's successful. It's fun. I'm enjoying it. It's just a very busy, I guess, time in my career with a lot of things going on in work, trying to continue to work for the community and help make this place a better place, but raising kids. I still have one at home and one off in college, and marriage with a wonderful wife. And, it's just a lot of stuff going on. And I try to keep all of the balls in the air.
It's hard.
It's hard.
How would you describe the things that drive you to do your work every day? What drives you to do this type of work? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, what I do at the Lewis Bear Company.
Let's start with that.
Okay, we'll start at the Lewis Bear Company. So what I try to do on a daily basis is look for opportunities to improve the environment at the Lewis Bear Company, to provide a safe workplace for our employees and a place, high quality of life for our employees. It's not easy. It's hard work that these guys are doing, these folks are doing, and it's long hours. And so how do we make that the best that it can possibly be? The work has to get done. I do a lot of that. I spend a lot of time looking for opportunities for new brands to bring on new suppliers. We're not a franchise. Anheuser-Busch is our largest supplier, and it kind of looks like a franchise, but we're an independent distributor. Mm-hmm. And so we can carry any different brands and products that we want to. We can do anything, really, we want to. Sell groceries if we wanted to. We don't want to do that anymore. But so we just carry a bunch of different beverages, and they cross over different types of beverages, different markets. Like, we're not just a beer distributor. We also sell non-alcoholic products like energy drinks and water and sodas and liquor and wine-based products and wine. And so I'm always looking for new opportunities. There's just a proliferation of different types of products. We're now carrying hemp products. Wow. Some people probably read about that in the news. Part of the and we can get into that if you want to know more later. But the federal government, when they reopened the government last week, part of that bill to open it was trying to ban these hemp THC beverages,
Right.
and they put in some language that would do that, but it won't be enacted for another year. So I think it really just gives the opportunity for the industry to come together. And so I participate in that part, and some of that dialogue. I'm involved in legislative, regulatory affairs related to our business, locally and statewide and federally. So I try to build relationships with our elected officials and folks who are interested in becoming elected officials and educate them on the importance of the regulatory system that we have for the products that we sell. It's important to regulate intoxicating products, unregulated, that they proved during Prohibition, when there was no regulation because it was illegal, didn't stop the industry from existing. It was just a black market, and there was a lot of crime related to it. And so it's been working now. But you have to continue to repeat these conversations and educate new elected officials when they turn over. And so I spend a lot of time doing that, look for opportunities for our family to invest outside of the company in different ways to sort of get all of our eggs out of one basket and see what else we can do. I look for opportunities for acquisitions and mergers for our families for the Lewis Bear Company, and talk with other distributors about those kind of things. Maybe just buying a brand from our competitor, because we have distribution rights for the brands we carry, and it's pretty complicated, but they're protected under a distribution agreement, and those are transferable. But with beer, supplier can't terminate those rights of the distributors. So it's actually marketable. So it's an asset that we own, those rights. That is the equity of our business, is those distribution rights, because we don't own any of the brands and we don't sell them to the consumers. We just buy them from the manufacturers and sell them to the retailers.
Wow.
And
What is it that drives you to do this work? I mean, that's quite extensive. What drives you to do this?
So, the legislative stuff is protecting the industry, protecting our business. Next year, our business will celebrate 150 years since it was created by my great-great-grandfather in Pensacola, 1876. So, number one, being fifth generation in the company is pretty daunting. And because you see these generational companies sometimes don't make it past the third generation. And here we are, generation number 5. And I don't want to be that generation that ran it into the ground. So that motivates me. I have children, and I want to give them the opportunity. If they choose to come back and work in our family business, I want them to have that opportunity available to them. And so I have to keep the doors open. We got to keep running it successfully. There'll be more mouths to feed with the next generation, because it just continues to grow, the number of people in the family and that depend on the company. And so I got to continue to grow the company. If we don't change, then we get left behind. So industries are always changing. That's why we're now carrying these hemp products, because alcohol sales are contracting, but these hemp products are coming to market and growing. And so those are sort of my motivations, I love our community. So I want to live here. I want to enjoy my life here, but I also want my children to be here, and I want your children to want to live here and have opportunity here. And so how do we do that? And we don't stay at home, watch TV. That doesn't get it done, although I love watching TV. But we got to roll up our sleeves and get to work. And I think it's important for everyone. I feel an obligation. Our family's been lucky to be successful here in this community because the community has supported our business. And so I feel an obligation to give back and try to get involved and see how we can help with education, healthcare, tourism, lots of different things.
You do quite a bit, and your family does quite a bit, and we keep saying your family does quite a bit, but I really want to focus in on you, because we have had conversations for a number of years about your role in this company and where you fall in fifth generation is quite a bit, and I'm sure it is a lot of pressure. When people hear the name David Bear, what do you want them to associate with your name?
Man, I don't know. I don't want them to think of me. I mean, honestly, I want to work. I just want to do, I just want to grow our business, support my family, support my community. If people think about me, they hear my name, then that's all I want them to know. I'm a nice guy. I don't back down from a fight, but I don't look for a fight. I think that's, I think probably something I've figured out over the last 15 years or 20 years now. But I like people, and I like, don't tell anybody I like people, because I try to act like I don't. But I don't know. I'm a nice guy, and I try to give back. I mean, that's what I want people to think of me.
What mindset guides you in this process?
What mindset? Could you explain that a little more?
Do you have a motto? Do you have something that you believe in that sort of drives you to do the work that you do, especially the community work that you do? Obviously, the business side of it is economic, but what is it that guides you? What pushes you? What principles push you to do this type of work that you do?
I don't know if there's any real principle that guides me, other than just like a personal obligation. I mean, I was raised to appreciate what we have, work hard for it, and give back to those who've supported you and those who need help and need support. I was raised in a Jewish home, so I have, belief in God, and I believe in community. And so I think maybe, a bit of that. I'm not a religious person, but I believe in my religion. I believe I have faith in God, and I believe that's something that, I feel like I need to live a life so that when I'm gone, I leave a good name behind.
If your story had a title, what would it be called?
Oh, Lord. I don't know. The House of Chaos.
Why is that?
It's just everything seems to be constant. I mean, I shouldn't say chaos. I just always have a lot going on. Sometimes I overextend myself. When you were reading earlier from my bio, I find myself, there are things that I care about and I enjoy doing, and so I get involved. And sometimes I overextend myself. My dad was really good at reminding me where I need to put my focus, because he was signing my paychecks, and if I wanted one, I better get to work at the Lewis Bear Company. That's my priority and my family's priority, but community's important. But sometimes I just get so tied up in doing so many things, and I'm the kind of guy that I don't get on a board just so I can fill my resume. I don't need that. I've got a job that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I just enjoy doing those things. And so when I get involved, I roll up my sleeves and I take the time to learn what it is that I'm doing, as much as I can about the organization or whatever the thing may be that I'm involved in. And, and some of them are very detailed and time consuming. And when they sort of overlap, when I found myself sort of the chairman of like 3 or 4 different organizations at the exact same time, and taking over as the CEO of the Lewis Bear Company when we're dealing with, some issues that happened, like the Bud Light fiasco that happened a couple of years ago. All this sort of came to a head at the same time, right after my dad passed away. And it was like, I got to stay busy and just keep running and keep moving along. And I just, I didn't know which direction some days I was supposed to go. So that's why I say chaos, the book of chaos. Some days I don't know where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just got to look at my list and see what's on today's list and just eat that elephant one bite at a time.
Well, let's kind of talk about that. There has to be an issue or a problem that you faced in your life that has shook you to the core or really challenged you. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I can talk about something that's challenged me in my past. I was, growing up, I came from a great home with, healthy family, but I made a lot of bad decisions. I really wasn't, and I remember growing up, like as a kid, I was making bad decisions. Like I wasn't focused on school. It wasn't a priority of mine. I felt like I did okay in school. I got by fine without even studying. I really never learned any skills to how to study properly. There were classes that I enjoyed, like math, and I did really well at it because it came easy to me. But history or English, having to read stuff was just not my strength, and I wouldn't do it, and I didn't do well in school. And I went off to college, and I bombed out of a bunch of colleges. I mean, I went to private colleges, a couple of them, and so I'm sure they would have taken the tuition and let me back in. But, I didn't focus. I didn't go to class, and because
You say colleges. This is multiple colleges.
I went to 6 undergraduate colleges.
Really?
Yes. I'll tell you,
Yeah.
in chronological order, I went to the University of Hartford in Connecticut straight out of high school. I wanted to go off to college as far away. If I was leaving town, I was going as far as I could. Yeah. They accepted me, and I loved that area, so I went. And I made C's and D's and F's. I don't know if I made 1 A because I took math classes. But I never studied. I skipped class, and there was always a party to go to. When I would find a group that wanted to party, hang out, there was other groups that were doing their homework. And then when those people finished their homework, the other group went to go do their homework, and I just moved to the next party. And so my parents said, we're not paying for you to go to school there anymore. I came home. That was the first time I ever worked in our beer business. And my dad put me on a truck as a helper and said he took the first 32 hours out of every paycheck to pay him back for my first year in college. Thank God he took the first 32 and not the last 32, so I got to keep the overtime. But I had to pay for that. And then came back here. I was working for him, and I went to Pensacola Junior College and got my grades back up because it was just felt like at that time, felt like an extension of high school where I could put a little effort in and do well. So then I went off to University of Denver in Colorado, and I was there for a year. And
that sounds like a recipe for disaster right there.
It was just a repeat of Hartford.
Yeah.
I didn't go to class. I, partied too much and moved back home. My parents weren't sending me back there. They actually kicked me out of the house, and my dad wouldn't let me work for him, so I went and got another job, just waiting tables. And I went to classes at Troy State. They have a campus here in town. At the time, it was out on Pensacola NAS. Mm-hmm. And I was doing like night classes and weekend classes and bombed out. And I was just not studying. I was going to classes, but I wasn't studying and just didn't make good grades. And at that time, my parents said, I told them, I think maybe I have a problem with attention deficit disorder and I need to see somebody. And they said, well, maybe you have a problem with drug addiction and you need to see somebody for that. Yeah. And I was like, I don't have a drug addiction problem. I just need to go do this. And they said, well, we'll send you to go see that doctor if you agree to go see an addictionologist. And so I said, okay, whatever it takes. I don't have a problem with that. That'll just be a breeze. We'll get through that. And
Did you have a problem?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I was in denial. And so I went to the school psychologist to do all the tests about attention deficit disorder. And he just told me he did all the tests. He came back and said, you're just lazy. You just need to do the work. And so
turns out you do have a drug addiction. Yeah, it's not so much ADHD. Yeah.
Right. So, then I went to the addictionologist. They were happening in parallel. And he said he just wanted to send me off to a place. He believed that I had a lot of depression issues and wanted me to go to this place to deal with the depression. Of course, it was a place where I couldn't use drugs or alcohol, but I could go there and talk about all the problems that I was having, the depression, because I was feeling a lot of guilt about what was going on, where I was failing out of schools and I just couldn't seem, I was in no relationships. Like I just couldn't, I was isolating myself and just getting in a dark place. And I felt like I was a lot like my dad, but I could not live a life like his. I just couldn't figure out what was wrong. And so this guy was like, well, this is a great place for you to go. And he named the place, and I knew it was a drug and alcohol treatment facility. And so I was like, I don't want to go there. It's just for drugs. I need to go place for depression. And he goes, it's fine. When you get out, you're welcome to use drugs and alcohol again. It's a safe environment there where you can't, but you can talk about all your problems. And at that point, I was just so miserable and in such a dark place in my life that I was just willing to do whatever it took to change. Obviously, my parents were pushing, but they were very supportive and would have let me do. They weren't forcing me to go because I wasn't like Baker's Act or anything like that. Excuse me. But I just felt like, you know what? And maybe it was God working for me. I don't know, doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I just became willing to do whatever it took. I was like, and the guy, because also the guy goes, well, you don't have to go to school and you don't have to work. You can just talk about your problems. I was like, that sounds like an ideal place. Like, it sounds like summer camp. It wasn't summer camp, but it was hard work. But I did go. I agreed to go. And
How long were you there?
Then he said, well, first I want you to go to this primary place, which was here in town. The other one was in Mississippi, outside of Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah. So I was in Pensacola at the treatment facility here for about 2.5 weeks. And then so it was primary, like a detox. And then I went to the place in Mississippi, 5 months. It was a 5-month deal. And when I got out, I knew I was never going back to that lifestyle. And I wanted to finish school, but I knew I didn't want to come back to Pensacola at that time because I didn't feel like I had the strength to stay away from the places and the people that I was with before when I was making bad decisions. And so I had a good group of folks that I'd met through treatment that were also staying in Jackson, Mississippi. So I stayed there and got sober and decided to go back to school and do the deal.
When you say drugs, obviously you're very
Thank you.
You're very very involved in this lifestyle. I'm assuming this is not just marijuana.
That's correct. Yeah, I was doing a lot of opioids and hallucinogens, a lot of LSD, and a lot of Lortabs and Demerol and Dilaudid and morphine. And
this is very serious addiction.
Yeah.
Was there a point? And let me ask you. So, how long is this period of time we're talking about?
Drug use?
Yeah.
The first time I smoked pot, I was in 7th grade. I was 12 years old, and did other recreational, like tried other things.
Was there a reason why you did this to start with? I mean, I've never.
No,
it was there available.
It was there. It was available. I knew other people that were doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I'd seen the Reefer Madness movies.
Yeah.
Had the people come to school. You know, the anti-drug things, programs, and it just never scared me. And then when I knew people who actually did it, the fear was gone. Like I just didn't have any fear. And when I tried it, I enjoyed it. I mean, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun until the fun ended, until I became depressed and lonely and isolated myself and dark and all that stuff. And so, but that was from, I was 12 the first time I ever smoked pot. And first time I ever got drunk, I was in 4th grade. That was an accident. But started drinking in middle school and smoking pot, and then continued. At one point in high school, my senior year in high school, I got sober and ended up staying sober for 3 years. My brother got in trouble for dealing drugs, and he went to treatment. And so I went to like a family week and was kind of as the family member codependent, that perspective through the family week. And I just started kind of internalizing these, like what's going on. And I really thought, if my brother has a problem, I probably have a problem too, and just started thinking about my actions. So I got sober, stayed sober for about 3 years into college. I even failed out of those first 2 colleges. Well, out of the first college, sober. I wasn't even drinking or using drugs or anything, just making bad decisions because I wasn't in a program. I'd gone to meetings and stuff like when I was in high school, but when I went off to college, I just chose not to drink and drug, but my behaviors were still self-serving and all that stuff. But I finally, when I went to treatment in Mississippi, I was 23 years old.
All right, David, that's a lot. That's certainly a lot to unpack just thinking about it. But let me ask you a question. Is there a moment where you think, hey, man, this is just completely out of control? I'm out of control. There's got to be a point where you're starting to say, hey, this is a bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I started to go see that the addictionologist. I was just thinking, I'm not much different than my dad. I mean, physically, and I think like he does. And even though I was young, in my early 20s at the time, he was successful. He was finding success in all facets of his life, and I was just in this cycle of turmoil. I mean, that was part of my chaos, was that earlier life. And I was depressed and isolating, and I didn't like where I was. I didn't like who I was. I mean, I still felt like I was a good person. I was still caring. I was good to my friends. I was good to my family. But I was feeding this addiction, and the addiction was just eating me alive. And so when that opportunity to go to this treatment came up, I just kind of threw my hands up and said, I quit. I mean, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I don't want to be where I am now. I want something different out of life. And I'm not ready to die. I mean, I thought about suicide, but I'm too much of a chicken shit. Thank God, because life's too good. It's just too good. If you can make good decisions and live right and reach out to people and ask for help, life can be good. And so I wanted to stop the life that I was living and figure out how to live a different one. And so,
is there a, you've said it a couple of times that you felt, I think I've counted 2 or 3 times that you said you feel like you were similar to your father. Was there a point where you felt disconnected from your father in this process? And is that something that's been difficult or was difficult for you to live maybe in his shadows or disconnected from him? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I never felt like I lived in his shadows. I felt like those were big shoes to fill if I was ever going to try to fill them one day. But I've come to realize I don't need to fill those shoes. I have my own shoes, and I'm going to make my own path. That path is not far from his path. Obviously, I'm back in the family business like he was. I care about our community like he cared about our community. I have a family like he had a family. So they're parallel, but it's my own path. And I can choose to be involved in the things that I'm passionate about. I run our company in a way that's a little bit different than he did. And so, I love my dad. He was very generous and he was very good to us, but he was very short-tempered. And a lot of people don't know. A lot of people actually do know that side of him. He was very demanding, and he wanted what he wanted. I mean, he used to actually joke about this, but I know he was serious. He would say, if people would just do what I tell them to do, I wouldn't be such a jerk. And he was half joking, but he was serious. Like in the moment, if somebody didn't do what he wanted, he would just become very domineering. And because my personality is a lot like him in ways, I'm much more patient than he ever was. And I'm probably more forgiving than he ever was. But I understand him the older I get. I understand his ways a lot more. But I would argue with him a lot because he had an opinion and I have an opinion. We both have very strong opinions. And when they conflicted, it was World War III, and I was always on the losing end of that because he was my father and he was my boss. Yeah. And so, so I loved him, but he challenged me. He challenged me when we would get in these disagreements and he would just kind of put the hammer down, that challenge to me was, how do I figure out how to bring him around? And if I can do that with him, I can probably do that with others. But so I want to be different. But when I was in my active addiction, I was clearly separate. I mean, I just kind of, they cut me off because they couldn't sit back and watch me destroying my life like that. It was too painful for them. And I couldn't imagine doing that with going through what they went through with my kids, with my own kids. And so, they wanted to know what I was up to and keep a relationship, but, I was living this dark life and I just wanted them at an arm's length from me anyway. But then once I, got sober and I was going back to school and I came home and worked in the company, I wanted to learn from him. I thought he was going to be the kind of boss that just brought me to all the meetings and one day turned over the keys. And that wasn't it.
I think a lot of people think that about you.
Oh, God.
I think a lot of people believe that you were born with the ability to have this wealthy family, and you had to do very little to earn where you're at now. I think you have shared with me privately that that's not nearly the case. You found yourself working on a truck after you, in the middle of some addiction and some issues. You're back here working on a beer truck.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that real quick.
Yeah. So his way of me learning how to run the company is to put me in all the positions, do the job, and then you understand the job. And you move from job to job and you understand how each job plays a part of the bigger picture. And so once you do all these jobs and you work your way sort of up towards that higher level, you understand how everything plays a part. And plus, when you make a decision that affects any of those jobs, you know exactly how it affects it because you've done it. You can cut the cards on people when they tell you that it's going to affect it one way. You've done it. You know whether they're telling the truth or not. And you have empathy for them because they've done this, because you've done the work that they're doing, and you can understand what they go through on a daily basis. And so when I talked about one of the things that I do on a daily basis is try to figure out how to improve the quality of life for the employees, I know how hard that work is. I mean, I remember when I was a salesman, I had my own sales route. I never was a driver. I never delivered. I never got my CDL to drive the truck, but I rode on the truck. I loaded the trucks working in the warehouse. I've mopped the floors in the warehouse. I've done every job at the Lewis Bear Company except for a driver. And I did not run one of our branch operations. But I learned all those jobs by doing them. And I was going to make a point a minute ago, and I just lost my thought. But, my dad always said, we may be born on third base, but we still have to get home.
Yeah.
And that's important. I don't want to, and my parents always made the joke, even the Rockefellers worked. So you got to work. It doesn't matter what you've got.
Yeah.
You need to work. You got to stay busy. But this company doesn't run itself. We've got great employees in different positions doing great work for us. But they got to depend on somebody to look out for those opportunities like I told you I'm doing, like try to improve the quality of life. It's not the salesman's job to do that. It's not, that's part of my HR director's job to do that, but she doesn't have the authority to make the decisions, right? So I've got to do that. So I have to understand what all the different jobs are in order to make those decisions to say, hey, we're not going to deliver 5 days a week. We're going to deliver 4 days a week. Or we're going to deliver 5 days a week, but we're only going to have our drivers work 4 days. So we're going to have to figure out how to have rotated teams to do that so that they, because they're working 10, 12-hour days, and you can't do that for 60 hours is an unreasonable amount of time to do that hard labor to expect from people. So, because I've done it. I've delivered the beer. I've worked on those trucks, and I didn't just walk into an office job. I came home from college and I started working in the warehouse, working on a truck, being a salesman. When I was a salesman, I had my own territory. I was at the warehouse no later than 5 a.m. And some days I didn't come home before dark. Most days I didn't come home before dark. And every single Friday, my route was out in Navarre Beach area, and I had to be at Navarre to meet the truck at 3:45 in the morning on Friday mornings, every Friday morning. And so that's not a cush job. That's hard work.
You know, work is worship, and that's the truth. And so I'm glad to hear that about you. But back to it. So you're struggling. You're working through this drug addiction. You're trying to figure these things out. You're a bit alienated, even by your own words, from your family because you're in kind of this dark place. What was the hardest part about admitting that you've got a struggle? I mean, what was the hardest part about that?
That first step, admitting it, and doing something about it. I mean, I don't feel like I have a big ego, and it was hard for me to admit it because it was going to make me look weak. It was hard to admit it because I was just in denial. I didn't really believe it. But I knew I was miserable, and I knew there had to be some way, something different. And so when I was offered that opportunity to go to the treatment, I took it because I just was willing. I was so miserable. I was willing. And it was just the admitting I had a problem, because literally when I got to treatment, they were doing my intake at the treatment facility. And they asked me why I was there. I think they were just asking me, like, what drugs am I using? You know, what are my drinking habits and all that? And I said, I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. I have depression. I need to go to a place for depression. I don't have a drug problem. I don't need to be here. I mean, that was literally what I said. And of course, they hear that from probably almost every single person that shows up. Yeah. And they just made some notes in the thing, and then they told me which room to go to. And thank God they did, because I stayed, and that's when I worked through it. But I think just admitting it is the hardest. You're just the disease of addiction is powerful, and it fools you. I mean, you don't know you have it. It's not like you can go to a doctor and get the diagnosis that you've got cancer because they did a scan, and you can look at scan and see it. It's up to you to do your own diagnosis. You can see people have bad decisions, bad habits, all that stuff. And people saw that in me, and they assumed I had addiction problems. But it was up to me to make that decision to admit it. And that denial is hard to break. It's hard to break through.
What lesson took the longest to learn from this experience?
That I had to turn my life and my will over to the care of God, as I understood it. My decision making was broken, and it was all self-serving. It was out of my pleasure and enjoyment of using drugs and alcohol and partying and all that. It got dark, and then it just became maintenance, where I was using drugs and alcohol for just to maintain that lifestyle I was living. But just depending on other people, asking for help, and just turning it over, going, okay, my decisions have gotten me here. I need to listen to other people, and I need to understand how I can find that other way of life, because my decisions have gotten me in this way of life. I need to learn how to do it from some other way.
Was there a decision that marked the beginning of this turnaround? And I know you said that you went there for depression, but there must have been some point while you were in there and you thought, oh man, these people may be right after all.
Yeah, well, it was a drug and alcohol treatment facility.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that wasn't day one.
No.
Yeah.
Well, drug and alcohol treatment facility was a drug and alcohol from day one.
But did you believe that once you checked in,
I was just there, and I was willing to do whatever they wanted me to do. I went, it's pretty structured. They take you have group meetings and, all these different, and talking to one-on-one with the counselor, and, and they give you work to do. I mean, you have to do like an inventory, like a moral inventory, and you got to I had to list all the different drugs and alcohol, drugs that I tried, and how often I was drinking and how often I was doing those things. And, because they're trying to get you to do this work, to put it in front of you, literally in writing. I knew I had done all this stuff, but it's not sitting in front of me in black and white. And so when you're putting all this stuff out in front of you in black and white, it hits you like a brick wall. At least it did for me, especially because then they have you read it to the group in the meeting, and because you're now being honest with someone else, because that was the thing, is like your decisions and your dishonesty and manipulation and all this self-serving behavior you have to break. And so it starts with being honest with these other people that are in the same situation you're in, but with the counselor facilitating the meeting and stuff. And so I'm reading all this stuff, and I look up, and everybody's jaw is open, like, I can't believe you're not dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I lost friends. I had friends that died from doing the stuff I was doing, and I just, by the grace of God, I'm here. And so it was pretty immediate. And I think by the time I got out of there, after those 2.5 weeks at that primary facility, I really realized, like, I think some of that fog had lifted. I mean, it was super early on, but I was clean for, 2.5 weeks or so, and talking through all this stuff and just learning more about me and my behaviors and how I was making those decisions and learning what decisions I could make. And I started feeling a little bit better. I felt a little healthier. That happens when you quit doing LSD and a handful of opioids.
Yeah.
You start to feel better, and you're eating healthy food because they're making meals for you and stuff. And all of a sudden I was just like, man, I feel like I'm headed in the right direction. And so then I went to that place in Mississippi, and pretty quickly it's sort of the same structure. You've got meetings and big group meetings, small group meetings, one-on-one with a counselor, and free time. And, and I just start kind of working through stuff, just all of this, the wreckage of my past, making the list. I mean, I was working the 12-step program. I was going to AA meetings. The treatment facility took you to AA meetings. And so I became a member. And
you're very proud about your sobriety. A lot of people don't know that about you, but you go to meetings every day.
Yeah, well,
still.
I don't anymore.
Not anymore.
I don't go to meetings like I should. Every once in a while I'll go to a meeting, but it's pretty rare these days. And good or bad, it is what it is. I should be going. I mean, I have some guilt that I don't go regularly, because there's a newcomer that's showing up today at the meeting, and they need people with sobriety that have gone through what I've gone through to share experience, strength, and hope with them, so that they can find recovery also, and realize there's a miracle that happens when you work those steps. And honestly, that's kind of how I progressed and decided I wanted to stay sober. This is the life that I want to live. And every single day, it's like service to man. I gotta continue to give back to my community. I gotta give back to my, fellow man. If there's anybody that I see or know that's struggling, I want to reach out and help, because I've been through it, and somebody helped me. Somebody was there for me. And but I've been sober for a little over 31 years now, which is crazy.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, it seems like yesterday, but.
And you say that there was somebody there for you. Who was that during those periods, whether it was a family member or maybe a counselor that you remember? There had to be somebody in your corner that you can identify with and say, hey, man, that person helped me out during this process. Whether it was during that initial day or thereafter, it had to have been somebody.
Well, I think so it's kind of it wasn't one person or one thing. It was an accumulation of things. I mean, my parents, unwilling to continue to enable me to make bad decisions when they wouldn't let me, when I failed out of Denver and I moved home, they would not let me live with them. My dad would not let me work for him. I was on my own. I had to go live my own life. But they always said they're there to help me if I need help, if I want help. They weren't talking about paying my bills and letting me continue the same lifestyle. They were saying, if you want to help yourself find a healthy life, they'll support it, right? So I always had that support there. Then this addictionologist who steered me in, and he tricked me into going to treatment by saying, hey, you don't have to work. You don't have to go to school. It's just a place you can talk about yourself, which was true. I mean, it was true, but, he figured out the angle. That was very helpful to me. That helped form, my decision and get me there. And then when I was there, the counselors, the other patients that were also there, building that network of friends who were and going to AA meetings and the fellowship within AA, the 12-step program. It works. All of that works. It's a miracle. And, people used to tell me, don't leave before the miracle happens. And there really is a miracle. And one day you just, all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I've been sober for a long time. And I have absolutely no desire to ever drink or use drugs again. But I know the day that I quit practicing those principles in my affairs, that old thinking will start to creep up. And if I'm not careful, it'll bite you. I mean, I've seen where people were sober for years, decades, relapse because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. They had cravings and they didn't call anybody. And then all of a sudden they did it, or they had some issue and they didn't pick up the phone. I now have although I don't go to AA meetings regularly, I have a men's group that I go to. There's a group of us, about 4 or 5 of us, that get together every other week, and we have a text thread where we're talking and sharing stuff. But we just sit down, and it's not an AA meeting, but we're all in recovery, and we just talk about life. Like, it's not the formal AA meeting, but we're talking about things going on with us, good, bad, indifferent.
Just a check-in process.
And it's for me, that's sort of helping me with the recovery and continuing to do that. But I think it's all of that. Like, all those people. I have a supportive wife, that loves me and supports me to stay sober. And she's not in recovery. She doesn't have the addiction problem like I do. And she drinks, and she's like, I won't do it around you if you don't want. And I was like, it doesn't bother me. I mean, it's me. It's my choice. It's not you. I don't have the cravings, and so it's not making me crave. But she's been supportive. We've been married 21 years. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I know her.
I don't know how I've kept her around that long.
What is that internal dialogue that you must have been using to start rebuilding confidence in the process? We start to look away from the problem now, and we're starting to look at the future. How does that start to, your confidence rebuild? What are you saying inside to make that happen?
To make which part happen? All of it happen? Life?
Yeah.
I just put one foot in front of the other. I mean, I've got motivation. I've got things to live for. I've got desire to be successful. Like, I just have this internal drive that I want to be successful. I want to teach my kids how to be successful. My wife was very successful in business when we met, and she, closed down. She owned her own businesses, and it was a one-man shop, but it was very successful. And she shut it down when we started having kids to raise our children. But she's never stopped pushing me. She always asked me, would you have rather married a teacher or a nurse that could have taken care of you? And I'm like, I don't think that would have been good for me. I don't think at all. She continues to challenge me like my dad challenged me. That's what I tell her when we get in a fight. I always tell her she's acting like my dad. To poke her buttons. But I mean, but in reality, they are very similar. They both push me to be successful. They challenge me in different ways, obviously. But all of that together, that's sort of like, I don't want to disappoint people anymore. I spent the first half of my life disappointing people. Now, and including myself, especially myself. And I just don't want to do that anymore. And I have kids that I am responsible for showing what it means to be responsible, to how to work hard, to show them integrity and honesty and all that stuff. And, I feel I want my kids to be good kids. I don't, you can't pick who your kids are. You make them, and they are who they are. But I want to try to form them. I know I'm screwing them up in some way, just like my parents screwed me up, and their parents screwed them up. That's what happens.
Was there a point where you were like, hey, I'm no longer that person I was before? Was there a point where you realized, man, I'm just not that same guy anymore?
Yeah. I mean, when I got sober, I realized I didn't want to be that guy anymore. And so I needed to work towards not being that guy anymore. And once I was making good decisions and I stopped making all those bad decisions, I knew I wasn't that guy anymore. I knew in my heart I wasn't the guy that, even in, like I said earlier, I was nice to people and nice to my parents. And, I felt like I was a good person then, but I was just making really bad decisions, and which was hurting other people. The way I was hurting myself hurt other people because other people cared about me. My family cared about me. They were worried about me. And that's a super selfish thing to do to them. And so when I stopped doing those things, I was working just random jobs when I got out of treatment, and then decided to go back to school. I knew I had to be successful in school because if I repeated the failures that I had before, then it was the same outcomes. I was hurting myself, and I was hurting those that cared about me. And so when I was seeing the successes of putting one foot in front of the other and doing the work, rather than resting on my laurels and trying to depend on somebody else to take care of me or just living some terrible lifestyle, I knew I wasn't that person anymore.
How did you start to measure success differently once you went through this process?
I think I measured success. I mean, it's just so many different ways. Obviously, accomplishing, passing, graduating from college, transferring into the college I graduated from with a 0.5 GPA and graduating with a 3.0 was a pretty good mark of success. I had changed, like I was successful at changing. I knew I had changed my behaviors and I was working hard. But that was a daily thing. And going to treatment, getting out, going to AA meetings, working a program with a sponsor, and staying sober every single day, and picking up the phone when I was upset about something, and rather than picking up a drink or a drug, I was making the right decisions. I knew I was on the right path, and I was a good person. I was a different person, and I was being successful in that part of my life. So I was successful at school. I was successful at being sober. And, then I came home and started working, and I was learning the business, and I was successful. I wasn't the best salesman, but I didn't have to be. I just needed to learn it. I needed to do the work. It was my job, and I needed to be successful for the company's success. But I wasn't the strongest. We have great salesmen, and I'm not that person. We all have our strengths, and
Right.
I think right now I figured out I'm in my strength. Like I know where my strengths are, and they really are in the legislative, regulatory. I understand that stuff. I understand I'm not a lawyer, and the most dangerous thing I could do is think I'm a lawyer, but I talk to lawyers on a daily basis, worrying about working on, auto liability, general liability claims, or distribution agreement negotiations with suppliers, or you name it. I mean, it's just all kinds of different legal scenarios. And when other distributors are looking to me and calling me and asking me for input, or we have a state association that for protecting the regulation of our industry. They're appointing me to the executive committee and then electing me as the chair of the board or the economic development board, or I'm starting the Foo Fest, or starting ACE before Foo Fest, and those things are successful, highly successful. I think I'm a different person than I used to be. I'm doing things for our community, for other people. My employees depend on me, and I show up. My family depends on me, and I show up. It's not just about feeding me today.
So, David, let me ask you, what do you think people truly misunderstand most about what it takes to truly have a comeback story like that?
If people are looking at me and my specific scenario, my situation, and think it's easy for someone like David because his family's been successful here and they've got money, and so he's got all that to help him through it, like what kind of problems could he have?
Right.
And my depression was my depression, and it was as dark and as deep as it could be. I mean, where I'm thinking of the end. Money had no factor in that. Money had no factor in, paying for my happiness. You know what I mean? It's the work. Putting in the work. I think the misconception is that things just come easy to certain people, and and they don't have to worry about stuff. But I have to worry about stuff all day long. People, I mean, I would tell you just the opposite. I don't sleep much anymore because I got kids and a wife that depend on me, for food and a house. I've got 280 employees who are dependent on our family for for the company, and they've appointed me as the CEO of our company. So and I have to think, especially when this Bud Light thing happened, and it was material to our business. It affected us severely. That was our number one brand, and it was cut in half overnight. And it has continued to decline. And it was so large that less than half of what it used to be is still our third largest brand that we sell. And so how do I fill that hole? How do I not have to close up shop? How do I don't want to terminate people. I don't want to let them go. Obviously when there's attrition, when people turn over, if we don't need a position, we can kind of consolidate to make up for the losses that those salesmen, because our salesmen make commissions, so they lost a lot of money when that happened. And so like these people are depending on me as the CEO of the company to make some decisions to help them take care of their wife and their kids and their livelihood. And so, I think people don't understand that money doesn't buy happiness, because I certainly wasn't happy before I got sober. It's good living. It's living right, living good, and working hard. I think that's the key to success. And I don't know if a lot of people don't recognize that, or they just they don't know that is the answer. I mean, some people just continue to live paycheck to paycheck, and they don't understand how can they get out of that vicious cycle. Yeah. And it's making decisions sometimes that can better yourself and finding that solution. Sometimes you can go, you're going along at a steady pace, but sometimes you have to get into a rut to come out and go up higher in life, if that makes sense. Like,
absolutely.
You got to stop the comfort zone, get out of your comfort zone, make a hard decision, do some hard work to elevate yourself. I think that's where you start to see some growth and success, and through that hard work.
If we could wrap this up into a book, this discussion we've had, what would be the first chapter of the book? What would it be called? What would be the name of that chapter?
Oh, well, if we're talking about my whole life, or just the conversation, the point where we're talking about middle school and all that, I don't know. Obviously it would just be an introduction to that, who I was, where because you got to start at the origin, right? The book needs to, unless we're talking about like William S. Burroughs kind of jump around and from, forward, backwards. But I would just say it's, that first chapter just talks about that dark part of my life, where I was, the lifestyle I was living, and the bad choices I was making, and how those choices affected me and others.
Let me ask you a question. What practices or habits or rituals do you do every single day that keeps you sort of in this process of rebounding?
Well, I wake up every morning when my body wakes me up. This morning was 3:30. And I just get up, I go drink a cup of coffee, and I sit down at my computer, and I just think about my day. I think about what I've got to do. I look at my calendar, and I just start doing it. I start reading emails, reading the newspaper, trying to, obviously have to wait for if you wake up at 3:30, you got to wait till the newspaper changes from yesterday's articles. But, it's just a habit. Like I've got this habit that I feel like, and I don't want any disruption. I love my wife, but I hope she sleeps in every day because she wants to talk, and there's lots to talk about, and I love having conversations with her, but I want my morning time. I'm not a morning person. I just wake up early, and I have stuff to do, and I just try to start my day in a very quiet place, and get some stuff done while I'm focusing on all the things I've got to get done. And the best part of my day is at some point my dog wakes up and he comes into the kitchen where I am at the table, and I get down on the ground and I just hug on him for a minute. He comes straight to me every single morning. It's a ritual. He does the same thing. He comes to me, we hug for a minute, and rub him behind his ears, and then I pat him on the side, and he gets up and he goes to the couch, and I get back into my chair and go back to work. And I don't want that to ever change.
Yeah, those morning times are very important. They're certainly important to me, and I think a lot of people our age, I say people our age like we're old or something, but it's the first thing in the morning, how you plan out your day, that kind of stuff is very, very important. Let me ask you, what do you think people get wrong about resilience or comeback stories like yours? What do you think they get wrong? That's a tough question.
That they don't have to do the work. I mean, I think that's really where people get it wrong. Like they do the work, they get to a point where things are working out for them, and their life has changed, and they think they can just rest on their laurels, and they don't have to continue to do that. They don't have to continue to give back. They don't have to continue to work, hard, and be there for others and help others and ask for help. And I think you find yourself. That's what I've seen, like through going to AA meetings and other things. When people get into that position, that's when they generally relapse and they go back. And not everybody that needs a, second chance have drug and alcohol addiction issues, but a lot of them, a lot of people do have those problems. And but everybody's got to continue to take steps towards whatever it was that took them out of that previous life. They have to continue that forever. You can't just stop.
Yeah. If somebody is in the middle of their own rebound story right now, they're driving in their car, they're at their home listening, wherever, maybe at work, what would you say to them right now?
Keep doing what you're doing. Keep, life can be overwhelming at times. And I said this phrase earlier. It's how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. Like I get overwhelmed at times, and I can't imagine how I'm going to get done all of the things that I need to get done. And I realize I just need to do one of them.
Yeah.
That's it. Just do one. Just do the next thing. And don't let life overwhelm you. Don't get all spun out on something. And remember, people are people. And so if you get spun out over somebody that upsets you, they're doing something you don't like, remember they're human, just like you are. Sometimes you can do the wrong thing. You can be mean, intentional or not intentional. You can do things that harm people, and you're human, and that's what happens. You have to remember other people are human too.
Yeah. Last question before we start to wrap this up here, because we've had a great conversation. You've been very transparent about your addiction, and we certainly appreciate that. But if you could tell me, what is your personal definition of a rebound story, what would that be?
Well, I think it's the accumulation of this whole conversation we've had. I think it is change. I mean, I could sum it up in that one word. It's change. In order to rebound, you have to change. And you can't rebound if nobody's a victim. We're volunteers in our life. I mean, you're a victim of crime. You're a victim. I don't mean it that way.
Sure.
A victim of circumstance. Like I was a volunteer. I was making bad decisions, and I put myself in that scenario. I made bad choices, and so I had to change to be a different person, to have that rebound, to be different. I had to change everything, my way of thinking, my way of acting, and find humility.
Yeah. David, I want to thank you for your time this evening and coming out and sharing your story. It's very important for individuals to hear individuals that are going through the same thing. I will take a personal liberty, and I probably will never do this again, but recently I had an opportunity to spend some time at a local hospital here, Baptist Hospital, and your family's name is on the top of that hospital. And my wife just recently lost her mother to Parkinson's, and she spent a couple of days in that hospital as she left this planet and departed. And it did not fail us while we were there that your family's name was on that, and the comfort that staff brought to my wife and to that lady that died, Tammy Hodge. So we appreciate it. David, certainly you can be found here in the community doing all kinds of good stuff for individuals, and we certainly appreciate that. Your work with the Lewis Bear Company will hopefully continue for a couple more generations, right? Hopefully you'll be setting them up for that. But if we see you around town, talk with you and chat with you about your Rebound story, and look you up on your Facebook and on your socials. You're here to serve the community like you do. So thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me, Ronnie. I appreciate you
man.
and everything you do. Don't let that escape anyone that's listening to this. Ronnie does a lot of work in this community, and he's a good friend.
Thanks, David. We appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Rebounds Podcast with Ronnie Rivera. If you have an opportunity, please review our show notes and support our sponsors, Blush and Needle Society, Meredith Bush Law Firm, Youths Left Behind. Also, please support us on our social media platforms, Instagram and YouTube. We'll see you next time on Rebounds Podcast.